Welcome to the Womenprene Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Gun. You're listening to Season 2, where I speak to more inspiring yet down-to-earth women in business across Malaysia and Asia. This episode is sponsored by Raybox Studio. In this episode, I'm speaking to Rowena Morais, who is a Malaysian entrepreneur. Rowena is also the editor, writer, publisher, and program director at Vertical Distinct. Her company supports human resources and technology professionals with global accreditation programs and learning resources. Rowena is proud that she's a cancer survivor. She was also proud about completing a half marathon and publishing her book. But what she is most excited about is her ongoing work in supporting men and women in building their professional visibility and body of work, particularly on LinkedIn and in her own network called Thrive. In this episode, you'll hear Rowena talk about many things, and among those will be her startup experience in Sydney, Australia until the dotcom bust happened, and how she took a startup experience to help her start her conference business in Malaysia for HR professionals, and how this led her to the publishing business, even though she had no magazine publishing experience whatsoever, and what she did to reach out to advertisers when she started her magazine, and how she later evolved her business into more private executive briefings and HR roundtables that were the talk of the town. Rowena also speaks about how she tackles the big things in life without losing her patience or focus, and how to keep being creative and moving ahead despite the fear of the unknown. This is why she offered a quote by Seth Godin that says, "If it scares you, it might be a good thing to try." Another all-time favorite of hers is "Just Start." Check out womenpreneurasia.com, where I list also some of her favorite books too. And now onwards to the interview. Hello and welcome to the show, Rowena.
Hi, Krista. Good to be here. Thank you for this opportunity.
So, Rowena, I usually start by asking my guests, how did your entrepreneurial journey begin?
Okay. Wow. I guess I would say that it began by me opening myself up to new experiences, in the sense that I just went on a whim to New Zealand. That was the start of it. I was working in law. I was practicing for about 2 years, and I found that it wasn't particularly interesting, or rather, I wanted to just open myself up to new things. And so I got on a working holiday visa to New Zealand, and I just left. So I would count that as the start of my entrepreneurial journey, although it didn't feel like that at that time. It just looked like a little bit of an adventure.
And how did that adventure, I wouldn't say end, how did that adventure bring on more adventures?
Oh, yes. It's just been one after another. It hasn't stopped, I guess. Well, the period in New Zealand led to an opportunity to go to Sydney to work in a startup. This was in the education space, where we were doing something very cutting edge at that time, which was to offer live webcasts. So what we were doing was we developed conferences and workshops, and at the same time allowed people from anywhere in the world to log in to the conference live. This was in 1999, 2000. So pretty much at the height of the dot-com thing, and we were getting investment, and there were lots of things up in the air and lots of opportunities, lots of ways that it could go. So it was very exciting. Coming from my background in law, I was doing a lot of R&D and in legal and operations. So having my fingers in a number of areas, a number of pies, so to speak, and having the opportunity to come in at the ground level in a startup in Sydney. So at that time, I remember it was extremely scary, because I really felt like I was, out of my depth, doing a whole bunch of things that I really didn't know anything about. But at the same time, you were still drawn to it because it was very interesting. It was exciting to know that we were filling a need and doing something that no one else was doing. Unfortunately, even though we were looking at investments and and things were progressing very well, the dotcom bubble. And so everything came crashing down in 2000, 2001. And we then reverted to just being a normal conference company at that point. So I continued working in that company for about 5 years. And after that, decided to head back to KL.
And what do you do when you headed back to KL?
Well, with the experience that I had in the conferencing space and also my first taste of entrepreneurial life, pretty much decided that I would take the experiences that I had and start our own company. So myself and my husband started a training and development business in the IT space primarily, because we already had a lot of experience in terms of IT programs and understanding the audience that we were after. So that's where we started. And we also worked to develop in the business space as well. So that was interesting. It was new. It was 2004. So that's about 16 years ago.
And what do you most enjoy about that business when you first started?
What did I enjoy about the business? I would say the most exciting part of it was just doing my own thing. The idea of having the ability to put into action the things that you were working on, and not having the corporate hoops that we would have to go through if you had new ideas. Of course, there was a lot of uncertainty and there were a lot of challenges with running a small business, and no one really around to kind of guide you and, provide mentoring or that kind of thing at that time. So pretty much you're flying blind and just kind of figuring it out as you go along. But I enjoyed the freedom to come up with ideas and be able to action it off, the ability to kind of make a plan to do something and be able to see the end result. That was very liberating, very exciting.
What were some of the offerings at that time from your company?
We developed conferences and workshops in the IT space, primarily in enterprise architecture, TOGAF certification programs. A lot of it was in the IT space because we had that familiarity already, because in the company that we were in Sydney, that was primarily the market that we were supporting. So it was really about going with what you knew to start off with and then branching out. So once we had developed the IT audience, we started to look at how we could connect with organizations a little bit better by focusing on the HR person. And so one of the areas we decided to venture in was the HR space with the conferences and the training. And that eventually led to the publishing business, the HR Matters magazine that we started, and a print magazine and a digital option, which also led to other related offerings like executive briefings for HR, as well as breakfast roundtables for HR leaders. That too was completely new because at the time that we offered the HR programs and that we started exploring the idea of a magazine, there was no magazine. So how that idea came about was we wanted to connect with HR people, and part of the marketing paraphernalia was exploring the idea of putting together a little booklet. So not a magazine, but like a booklet, maybe 8 to 10 pages, and figuring out that our ad for the event or the course would be the centerfold. And we would just create some content that would flesh it all out. And we have a booklet / newsletter type thing that we could, but hard copy. And so that was the start of it. And we started researching to see what magazines were out there. And at the time, there were no HR magazines. So that was a bit interesting because it was like, why is there no HR magazine out there? Either they've come out and failed and we shouldn't get into the space, or there's a great opportunity to try something new. Now, at the time that we started the magazine, obviously, the team that we had in place, we didn't have any kind of experience in publishing or writing or anything of that sort, but we thought we would just give it a go and see how it would work out. And I think that kind of sums up a lot of the approach that we take to these sort of things, that you don't necessarily need to figure everything out right at the beginning. You don't have to know exactly how it's going to start or end, but you have to have a plan and then just run with it and just kind of take it as it comes and manage it as it comes, rather than feel that you have to figure everything out right at the start.
So what do you find out about the HR space when you said that there was no magazine? And so you didn't know whether there was no magazine because it wasn't a viable space to have a magazine, or people started and they flopped. What was the outcome in the end? Did you find out?
Yeah, we found that there were some initially, but it didn't take for very long. It was short lived, and around the time that we were thinking of it, there wasn't anything. So whatever we saw was much earlier in different formats as well. So more for like industry, body, not really, what we find now in the market where there's so many of these magazines. But back then, no. And so to be honest, we didn't spend too much time trying to do any kind of deep analysis, because, all of that takes time, and we have to come back to the original goal, which was to market the course. So we put that booklet together, and that led to the exploration of putting a magazine. And we just said, let's just do the first issue and see how it goes. Now, we were able to convince advertisers in our first issue, and that was a very promising first step, because we didn't have anything that we could actually point to. No mock-up, nothing, so it's really just the concept and the idea of, what the target audience is going to look like and what they can expect to see in the magazine. And we were able to get advertisers to come on board with that idea. And that was enough for us to say, okay, we're going to look into this.
Launch.
It's worth
exploring.
Yeah.
That's an interesting approach, but I think a lot of businesses start that way, right? We believe that we have an idea, we are convinced that it will somehow work, and we just go ahead and launch into it. Yes,
totally. I think that a lot of it is fueled by trying to solve problems. So it is what it is, that what we were trying to do was trying to market a course. But that led to the idea of this magazine, and seeing that there wasn't anyone out there, it presented a good opportunity to really drive more visibility for us as a business and be able to support the community, the HR community outside of just the courses. If we could find a way to provide more value through the thought leadership that was covered in the magazine, then it would just strengthen the value offering.
Okay. So can I ask, since it seemed like it was quite a smooth start to the magazine, what were some of the challenges then?
Well, a lot of the challenges with a print magazine is trying to meet the deadline. So we have the challenge of making sure that people can understand, the advertisers can understand what it is we're offering. So even though we got the first round of advertisers easily, every issue was, getting back to making sure that they understood what the value offering was. You had the first issue, so that was the only thing that you could show at that point. But still, it was never anything to be taken for granted. There was no resting on the laurels. It was hard work the whole way. But one thing I remember about that period is that it provided a valuable opportunity for me to because I was the editor of the magazine, it provided a valuable opportunity to go out and just reach people that I would not necessarily have been able to reach that easily. Being in media and wanting to get thought leaders to come forward and share their opinion, there's no shortage. And so if you were just anybody kind of reaching out, maybe you would not, get the attention that you were looking for. But being in media, people were always happy to talk to you. And so it was a wonderful opportunity to reach out to various people that you were interested in, that you thought were, leaders in their field, and just basically cold call and just call outreach and just say, hey, look, I think you're doing great work in this area. I'd love to pick your brains and find out more about how you did this. Would you be interested in sharing your story in this? And I can't remember any occasion really where somebody turned me down. Sometimes there would be a delay, so they might not be able to make it in time for this issue, but they would for a future issue. But there was really never a situation where people said, nah, I'm not interested in talking to you. People were always interested. And what's exciting is it wasn't just anybody. It's like I am shortlisting the people that I want to reach out to. So it was really, really wonderful because I saw this as a learning opportunity, a way to kind of build up my own experiences and expertise in this field. Because I'm coming from a legal background. And although I went into Sydney and worked in that startup and ventured into the IT space, I didn't have any HR background. So, the imposter syndrome was pretty much present for a big part of that journey. The idea that, who am I to be weighing in or talking about these issues? Do I have enough credibility to be, elaborating on these things? So those kind of things took a while to get around. You had to immerse yourself in that space so that you could come up to speed, so that you could know more about what it is that you were
Could I
going
ask
into.
this question?
Yeah,
How long
sure.
did it take you to get out of this feeling that, that imposter syndrome feeling?
Well, to be honest, I don't think it ever really goes away, but I can say that I'm more in control of it now. You still have it. It's to a lesser degree, but for the first few years, it was very tough because it feels so real that what you're thinking is, well, it was a fact at that time because I was not coming from HR. So when I was running the magazine, my goal at that point was not so much for me to weigh in on the topic, but to make sure that I gave enough space to the thought leaders to come forward. And I was also very much aware of the fact that although you bring thought leaders and practitioners in to share their thoughts and opinions, as the producer of the magazine, when you're editing the articles or writing these pieces, you had to do a really good job, because if you fail to do that, it's not purely the practitioner or the professional. No one's going to look at that piece and say, oh, it's that particular person is not really good at what they do or whatever. It's going to still reflect on the magazine as a whole. So that's very tough, because I remember in the early days, the aim was to make it a Malaysian magazine. And so the goal was just to interview Malaysian HR professionals. Many people were very happy to get on the phone and to be interviewed. But then I'll always have this thing, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you, and they'll tell me all this stuff and I'll be taking notes, but then I can't be mentioned. So I'm like, we want to make sure that all of these HR leaders get, showcased. We want the learning and the development to grow, not just for these people, but for the profession as a whole. But if we can't talk about these things publicly in a proper forum, then how is that going to happen? We can't just expect others to do it. We ourselves, when called upon, have to then step up. But many of them were not keen to step up for a variety of reasons. Either they had not been given that opportunity before, or there were political issues,
Or they were afraid that whatever they said wouldn't
that factored in a lot. Yes,
yeah.
That factored in a lot. If you're not, of course, right now where we sit with, LinkedIn and everyone voicing their opinions on a variety of issues, the landscape has changed quite a bit. But back then, yeah, nobody wanted to be quoted. Nobody wanted to really share their story publicly. And that caused me to evaluate the direction we were taking as a magazine, and just having it limited to Malaysia and having it limited purely to hard HR topics like performance and metrics. And I wanted to cover some of the softer soft skill topics as well, like psychology and communication and EQ and all of those things, and be able to look outside Malaysia. And so we made a decision to not have it purely Malaysian centric and open it up to practitioners and professionals from around the world. And when I did that, that really opened up everything for us, because it was an opportunity to reach pretty much anyone you wanted to, because they would be happy to talk to you.
And willing to be quoted.
Yes, absolutely. Outside of Malaysia, so many willing to share, so many willing to, step up and understand what opportunity they were being provided. Yeah.
Wow, that is such a wonderful way to get started, but at the same time you had some challenge in between, and you decided to move beyond that and look beyond that problem and do something about it. So I was having this question in my mind when you were talking. How does a lawyer with a legal background learn how to edit?
Oh, I think, that's partly, I think, okay, one thing you realize about taking on lots of different experiences and doing different things is you start to learn more about yourself. So the entrepreneurial journey has given me a keener understanding of my skill set. So writing and editing I think is something I've always done. Writing I used to do a little bit in my school days, but not in a major way. And to be honest, I was also wanting to write when I was younger, but terrified. And so I just kind of held back. Whenever I did any kind of writing activities in my teens, like I did a bit of journaling here and there, I was never happy with the end result. It just never hit the mark. It's like the ideas flow in your head in the cloud, it all seems to connect very well. But when you take it out of your head and you start writing it out, what is this? It's like garbage. You don't sound sophisticated. It sounds so disjointed. And so in my teens and in my early 20s, I never really explored the idea of, writing. I just pushed it to the back always and said, nah, this is not me. I don't have the skills to do this. I'm just going to focus on other things. So you just did law, and with law, there's a lot of reading and writing and editing and crafting. So I could communicate, but when it's work related and it's very focused in that way, drafting and stuff like that, I could do it, but not what I saw as more the creative side of writing an article, putting your thoughts together, starting with a strong opening, having an opinion and closing it off. That's a little bit different from legal drafting. And so I just kept putting it behind to the back. And what I noticed over time, when you look back, everything seems to be clear, but at the time it was not. You realize it just keeps coming back. It just kept coming back to me and resurfacing. And I just kept pushing it aside. And then when the magazine, when I started with the magazine, of course, that was again coming back. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to push this aside because I need to make this work from a business perspective. This is the direction that we've chosen to take. So I got no choice. I have to make this work. So I'm going to do this first issue. Now, of course, it was scary. At that point, I was more comfortable doing the editing than the writing. But I did what I had to do, and my focus. And so what I did was you focus on breaking the task down into manageable chunks. So when you look at some problem, at a distance, it just seems overwhelming. But if you go a little nearer and say, I'll tackle this and I'll tackle that, and you feel you can handle those things, then you're able to chip away at it slowly. And that gives you the confidence to keep taking the next step, even if you feel like when you look at it as a whole, I can't do this. And so that's the approach I took to getting that first issue out. Is I just need to get 8 articles. I just need to find 7 people that I could speak to. I just need to have that first interview with that person done. Okay, now I just have to have the second interview. Now I just need to put that interview, into a final format. Okay, then I just need to send it off to this person and get their, feedback on how they think it works and whether they can also assist. And so that's how it went. Piece by piece, the thing got done, and then before I knew it, we had, 12 issues. And then, of course, it was okay, on to the second year and to the third year and so on and so forth. And with, advertisers coming on board, people started to be, more familiar with the brand. It just all made sense to carry on doing it and to see that it was really fitting a need, because the feedback was that there wasn't any other magazine out there. The articles were really useful. People were, finding it, it was well produced. We had some design and aesthetics to it. And so it really was solving a problem. And so we just kept with it. Over time, though, we found that you obviously can't earn as much from the subscription. So our focus was far more on the advertisers. And then we started looking at other ways of continuing to support the community. And that's how the idea of the executive briefings took place. It was also a little bit of, we know these people through email and we know when they purchase the subscription, but wouldn't it just be nice if we could just meet face to face? So if we could find an opportunity, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, that we could all gather, all the subscribers could gather, this would be good. And so the idea of the executive briefing took hold, where we would have these gatherings at Menara Star. They have a pretty big auditorium with about 100 odd capacity. And we used to run the half-day briefings there. And we would get close to 100 people coming in. These briefings were for free, and they would get a copy of the magazine as well. So that was another stage, a new development, because then I had to deal with another thing, which was public speaking.
So I see every part of your business or every stage of your business brings up its own set of challenges.
Oh, for sure. But that's pretty much the case with any business, isn't it? As long as you're interested in evolving and moving the business forward, you're bound to find challenges, right?
But exciting ones, of course.
Yes. Yeah. I think having the right mindset also helps. You've got to be enthusiastic and interested in wanting to move ahead with it, even despite the scary nature of it. It's a fine balance. If you let it take over, then it's all too much, and then you just stay still and you do what you know and what you're comfortable with. But if you tell yourself that there's lots of possibilities that could happen as a result of this, then you open yourself up. And I really enjoyed the idea of having that face-to-face contact with subscribers that you've long developed a relationship with. Being able to meet them face-to-face was very interesting.
And then what happened after that? I'm very interested in the public speaking aspect of your business.
Oh, well, the public speaking aspect is still a very small part of it. But what led after the executive briefings, they became an annualized affair. So we would run them every quarter, and we did that for a few years, covering various themes. And it became known in the industry, was something that people looked forward to. Of course, there were always the typical conferences and all going on, but the unique aspect of what we were working to put forward was to get away from the conference model. We didn't want the stock standard presentations. So when we ran these sessions, I said, I don't want any slides. I don't want, we want you to come and share from the heart, as in get into the meat of what it is that we are dealing with. Because the slides and the presentations is a certain look and feel and a certain thing that people do, and it's the same thing we hash out at every conference, and I didn't want that. So we kind of banned slides and PowerPoint and said, just come up and you talk about the issues from the heart and keep it short. And so the sessions were more, I feel they really hit the mark in terms of the actual issues that people were facing. And although we couldn't cover everything off in the sense of going into too much detail, people felt that we were talking about things that really mattered, and the networking opportunities enabled those conversations to continue. during the breaks and stuff like that. We made sure that there were sufficient breaks so that those conversations could continue. And so people enjoyed coming to the briefings on a regular basis. The briefings that led to the roundtables, which was interesting because
so that was also an evolution.
Yes, an evolution. Yes. These were paid products. So we would have clients come up to us saying, we'd like the opportunity to address this sort of company. They'd have a wish list of the kind of HR leaders that they would want to connect with. And so the product that we developed was these breakfast roundtables that would take place in a lavish hotel, like Meridian or Hilton. So nice surroundings, very plush. The HR guests would come in for free. And it was an opportunity over a 3-hour breakfast meeting to talk about the hard topics of the day, the big issues in a closed door environment. So that was the compelling thing for me that I was offering to them. The closed door environment, but still an opportunity for a client to then talk about their offering, but in an understated sort of way by presenting themselves as thought leaders. So this we did very successfully for a number of years. And it was an opportunity to grow my skills in moderating and leading conversations.
Wow. So that sounds really exciting. Like from one part of the business to another part of the business and to a third part of the business, right?
Yeah.
So
meanwhile, the usual things still go on, we're still running the courses.
You're still running the magazine, right? So this is add-on.
Yeah, we've changed the format. So in the past, we were doing the print magazine, which was fairly expensive and very deadline oriented. And we had to make a decision at some point to go digital, which we did. And that's opened things up for us. Now we publish, but not in a magazine format. We publish on the website. And we no longer push for subscription. We just use that to raise visibility and still have the courses. But now we just publish articles. So we're able to put more out and be limited by print schedules.
Okay. And then what happened after that? I'm sure many more things happened after that. After you did the executive briefings and then you had your closed door breakfast. What do you call that? Yeah, the closed door
breakfast roundtables.
Breakfast roundtables. Yeah. Yes. Well, okay. Can I ask this other question before we get into that?
Yeah.
Was that one of the most unique things in the market at that time? Your breakfast roundtables.
Yes. There were not many people doing the roundtable. So that was terrifying too, because when you're there were roundtables going on, obviously, media companies and all that were doing that, but you don't really see other companies doing these roundtables. So that was scary in the sense that you were setting the bar. You had to decide what was the format how is this going to look like? How do I want to position it? How does the final product look? What is the impression I want to create? What is it that I want people to take away? What is the emotion that I want to create? So it's a lot of things in the mix, and yet so very creative. So, you really get into it if that's the sort of thing that you like to do, but scary because you don't have anywhere to look to kind of guide you. It was hard to kind of figure out what's the best way to do this. So you have to look inside yourself mainly to say, okay, these are the parameters within which we want to operate. These are our absolute, drop downs in terms of what we will and will not accept with clients or with the format or anything, to make sure that at the end of the day, we deliver what we say we're going to deliver, because at the end of the day, it's a joint product in that sense. If you bring clients on board and the product can change because it's a dynamic environment,
and you're dealing with people.
You're dealing with people, you're dealing with different expectations. When people get the microphone and they are in front of their wish list clients or potential clients, what are they likely to drop down to? A quick pitch. And then how do people feel about being pitched? And what are we actually here? Weren't we here to do this? So there's a lot of issues that can come up on the fly. And when you're running the show, you have to make sure that you have a very clear idea of how you want this show to go, so that you can identify when it is not going that way and rein things back in. So again, that's, I've always been very comfortable in the back end behind the scenes. But this kind of stuff that I keep finding myself in, I'm suddenly always in the front, which I don't want to be. But, again, when I was doing the
limelight.
push into the limelight. So you don't want to do it, but I have to do it because that's what the role calls for. So you just do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but it's good. I mean, I love the skills that you get at the end of it. And you have to have that patience to go through that journey. There's no shortcut. You have to go through the experience and you learn through the process, which means being happy that, not happy, but being satisfied or being okay with the idea that some sessions are less good. Things are never where you want them to be. So you have an idea of how the session needs to run. Someone says something, someone does something, and then you think, oh, I failed, or this is not what I thought the session was going to be. But then people give you feedback and they went, oh, that session was great. And you're like, okay, if you thought it was great, then that's great. That's great. Because, you are always going to be far more critical of what you're trying to do. And everyone there in the room also has different experiences. But the roundtables were very great because of the closed door aspect. People could really feel that they could talk openly about really important issues. So even though we were media, I told them that we would not publish what we discussed. We would publish highlights. We would publish the, softer side of things. We would not talk about everything and people really let down their guard and they talked really openly about what they were facing, and everyone knew everyone in the room. So, you knew who was sitting in front of you from which company and what their job title was, but it was a closed door. It was collegial. It was a safe environment. And at the end of the session, people would have new relationships, new found respect for X or Y because of what they faced, and then they would continue the relationship after the fact, and always new people in these sessions. So it was a good way to kind of, have a deeper connection with the HR community and at the highest level, because you're dealing with the, vice president of HR or the head of HR, typically even for multinationals or local organizations. So pretty good.
And what happened after that? I'm sure there are many more things in your
path. Well, yeah, at some point we kind of switched from producing conferences and workshops, which we ran in Malaysia and Singapore, and tightened it up to offer certification programs only, which is what we do now. So we are the channel partner for the Human Capital Institute, which is a U.S. International body that offers a range of HR programs, and Cloud Security Alliance, which is everything to do with tech. So we offer the cloud security certification programs. So part of that decision to go down that road was just to get into what we felt was the right way to go with credentialing, getting accredited, offering international programs so that, globally recognized, helping local professionals to really get, on their learning journey through this pathway and kind of moving up from there. So that's the focus that we're taking now. And through this process, I also started doing I started with the writing and the editing. I started to see that I could also be offering this as a standalone service myself. That hey, I'm doing this in this company, but perhaps there might be people that needed a copywriting support or help with marketing. And through the process of starting the company and doing the various sales and marketing strategies, we moved from a largely analog, what was initially very sales focused, telesales focused, slowly moving to be more marketing led, and then eventually into totally digital marketing led. And so building up the skills on that, which also led to the entree into LinkedIn and learning what LinkedIn was. I mean, when I first joined LinkedIn, it was just exploratory. It was like, oh, here's a new platform, just go and check it out. Little did I know years later that, I was going to be so fully into LinkedIn and seeing the platform grow and develop the way it has. And that has also provided me a different opportunity to support professionals in terms of making sure they develop professional visibility, making sure that they have enough that they're able to build their influence in terms of their profile, in terms of how they build their network, and in terms of what I call their body of work or their digital portfolio, something tangible that they can point to show people that they're good at what they do, whatever it is. So that's been the other business that I started as well that runs alongside this.
So you sound like your plate is totally full.
Yes.
Of everything, right?
But in a good way.
Yeah. And you enjoy what you do. I can see that. I can see that. I can see you enjoy what you do and you're really happy doing it. And yeah, I think that's important. Not just starting the business and running it, but also being happy doing what.
Yes, totally. I consider myself blessed, I guess, because I have found the thing that works for me. I found my flow. I found my purpose and the value that I can bring, which not necessarily everyone is able to find. And I feel that part of how that has happened is the willingness to be open, to explore, to try new things, to also be willing to fail as part of the process. So with any of these things, there was never really an understanding or expectation that this is a sure thing and I know I'm going to ace it. It was more of, I have no idea what is going to happen, but this looks interesting and I'm kind of curious. So I'm going to check it out and we'll just see how it goes. I don't have to figure the whole landscape out. I don't have to plan the next 5 years. I just need to see how it's going to go for 6 months and then go from there. And I think if you're willing to do that, then things can happen. I look at all of this, based on my own experience, and I see that that's how it's happened for me. And I feel that that could be the case for other people. But I think a lot of people have fear as well about stuff like this because there's, nobody can tell you whether it's going to happen or not. You have to be willing to try it out. And then even after you try it out, you got to be willing to put the work in, and sometimes people may quit too early because, failure too early. And then they look at that and they say, I failed. So therefore it's not for me or it's not meant to be. Whereas I just, I fail, but I would just say, you can't quit too soon. So I'm just going to keep at this, because this is what I think I should do. And so each point or each, maybe like a milestone is also an opportunity to reassess and recommit.
So this brings us to the question that I wanted to ask. Would that be some of the advice that you give someone who wants to start out in a business like yours or similar to yours? Would that be part of the advice that you would give that person?
Yes. I think you do need to look at yourself and see what it is that you want to do, have some ideas already about what you'd like to do, and then go out and explore it and make a go of it, and be willing to go through the journey. See the place that I am now where I'm, able to do copywriting and editing work and writing work and writing as often as I do, which is quite often. I know I could not have done this if I had not done the work. And, it has not been easy, but I know that if you're willing to do the work, you can get to that point. I don't know that everybody will be willing to do the work. I think if people like to, I think it's easy to look at the end result, to see the success, to not, the iceberg thing that people see the success and think, it just comes easy to you. Maybe we like to believe that is the case, but frequently, if you actually take the time to evaluate or if you have conversations with people, you realize the ones that succeed is because they just kept at it. And I think if you're going to be an entrepreneur, that is something that you've got to build that skill, that little bit of, of a thick shell to kind of weather the storms so that you can make it, it's like, I call it a bit like Britney Spears, a very public facing life, as much as people see my writing now, they can also see my writing from 10 years ago. I don't highlight it, but it's there,
there.
And it had to go out in order for me to be at the point I am now. Are you willing to do that? Some of the journey can be hidden. Of course, in media, most of it isn't, but other people's journey can be more hidden, but you still need to go through that journey.
Good, great advice. I love that. I love that. Okay, now I want to ask you this question. What are you no longer afraid of?
Oh, I'm still afraid, but what am I no longer afraid of?
Yeah.
I guess I'm no longer afraid of trying new things. I'm happy to give it a go. You know, you still have the fear, but you find a way to manage it so that you can move forward. So I have long had a fear of public speaking, but and I think also if you know the direction you want to take, you kind of open yourself up to various experiences. I feel also that things kind of align themselves in a particular way. They kind of situations can crop up that can support you in that journey. Sounds a bit new agey, but
Do you have an example of that?
An example of that. Okay, so some years ago, I knew that I had to open myself up to public speaking. Okay, that although that's not the space that I want to get into, charging to speak publicly, I knew that that is a skill that I still need to build in order to do the kind of work that I do. At some point, you will have to address an audience of sorts. Okay. And when I opened myself up, it was more of an internal thing, like a decision. And then I found that I was getting these opportunities to speak. So I just ran with it. I took that as a sign that, okay, you say you're open to it. And so now the opportunity has come up. Now you have to put your money where your mouth is. Yeah.
And how do you feel about it after doing it?
Yeah, I'm happy I did it because what happens is you have an internal marker. And when you do something that you think you can't really do, that marker shifts. And it has a bearing in all your future decisions. It changes things internally for you. Even if it's not immediately visible, even if you've got nothing that you can point to, something shifts inside you because you've pushed yourself and you can see something different. And that internal marker shifting is very powerful for you in terms of new things that you want to do and just understanding what you're fully capable of, sets just changes everything for you.
It sets a new benchmark.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you some of these questions, which are a little bit more personal. What's the craziest thing you've ever done?
I guess I would say the public speaking bit, accepting that. It feels like the craziest thing I have ever done simply because it's the furthest thing in my mind to go do. So to say yes and do it sounds absolutely crazy to me,
What is an unusual habit that you have that people don't know about?
I can come across like a bit negative and pessimistic because when I look at an issue, I have a tendency to want to see all the things that can go wrong about it initially. So even if I'm excited about an idea, if someone were talking to me about it, it will not sound like it. It will look like I'm totally against it because I'll be poking at it in all the possible variations. And so it will just look like, I'm totally uninterested. But that's just a way that I need to make sense of it for myself. But even though I do that, I still consider myself a naturally optimistic person.
Okay.
Always
Can you
think the
name?
best of.
Okay, then I want to ask you this: can you name a person who has had an impact on you?
Oh, there's so many, right?
You can name as many as you want.
I think your family has a huge impact. My family has had a huge impact on me in terms of, my formative years. I guess you could say you might take it for granted, but now that you're older and wiser, hopefully you look at it and you see that your upbringing has caused you to be where you are. That perhaps if I grew up in a different household, that I might not, be the way that I am. And so I grew up in a, positive household, family of teachers. I've got teachers on both sides of the family. very much interested in pushing ourselves. Although in my family, there's two of us that are entrepreneurs, but and my parents are not. I don't know where I got that bug, but they've always had that support for me. And then my own immediate family, my husband and my children are very supportive of this crazy life, this entrepreneurial life, just odd hours. And, but at the same time, being able to be very present for the children as well has been very important and a key priority for me in being able to run my business.
Have your kids ever mentioned that they want to be just like you?
No.
Not yet. Not yet, maybe.
Not yet.
Not at the stage yet. Okay. What about a personal goal that you're currently focused on?
Finishing my book.
Tell us about it.
Started writing it 2 or 3 years ago, but gone past the deadline that I set for myself. I've had a few challenges along the way, but hoping that I will be able to, put it to bed this year or next year at the latest. The book is, I would say, a culmination of the work that I'm doing, in the sense that I want to be able to support professionals everywhere to build more influence for themselves. And I see that if they do it in these 3 areas, they will achieve success. And the 3 areas are their profile, their digital profile primarily, their network, both digital and offline, and their body of work or their portfolio. So that's what the book is. It's about helping to draw that landscape and be able to show them a way forward, referencing my own journey in the process.
I can't wait to get your book then. You have to finish it, Rowena.
I'm working on it. Yes.
So this is what I call public accountability, right? You've announced it to the world. So all the rest to you. Yep. You're gonna get it out. I believe in you. I know you're gonna get it out.
Thank you. Yes. I've announced it to a couple of people. So yes, accountability.
Okay. So what about something a little bit even more personal? Okay. Malaysians, right? We love our food. What's your favorite food?
Devil curry.
Okay. Can you cook it?
Of course.
Okay, so this is your favorite food that you can cook. There are some people who can't cook their favorite food. Okay. Favorite book or books? I know you're a voracious reader.
I shared some with you, but the one that I would like to highlight here, which I mentioned previously, is Getting There, A Book of Mentors by Gillian Zoe Segal. I love this book because you get a chance to hear directly the entrepreneur's voice explaining their journey. They will go into some highlights. Always there's an issue, there's a problem, there's a challenge, and you get to go inside their mind's eye, seeing what they were struggling with, seeing what they were grappling with. And a lot of these problems, we're talking some of them, problems that they've had to face and challenges over the, years, challenges that, have been there that are pretty big. And what you come away is you are inspired. You get a feeling that the challenges that you face as an individual are the kind of challenges many people face. And so there's a kind of human element, there's a kind of bond, I guess, between all of us, that there is a universality of the experience, but also there's a uniqueness to each of us. The book is inspiring because it shows you what people need to go through to get to where they want to be. It shows tenacity, perseverance, dedication. And it's not in a way that you are going to come away feeling depressed or sad about it. You're just going to feel that if they can do this after everything that they've faced, then of course I can too, if I set my mind to it. So incredibly powerful.
Okay.
Many of the entrepreneurs in there are well known. Like one of them is Vidal Sassoon, and the guy who wrote Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I mean, a lot of them are American, but they're all well known and loved brands and people out there. So very interesting.
Okay, definitely check it out. I heard you mention it, but I have not checked it out yet. Okay, your favorite movie?
Favorite movie?
Are you a
Nothing comes to
rom-com
mind.
fan? Are you a rom-com fan?
Mm,
No.
not particularly, but no, I don't have any favorite movie that I can highlight. Not off the
Okay,
top of my head.
favorite song?
Favorite song? Oh, anything by David Guetta.
Okay. Okay, now this is the interesting part. Favorite compliment that people have given you?
That I'm a good communicator, that I write very well.
And you do. You're very clear. You're very clear. You're very good at explaining complex topics, complex things.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, some I have heard that before, and it's good to know, because you don't. Sometimes you see things very clearly, but you're not sure that others do. So if someone else says that, it's like, okay, that's good, because I thought so, but a lot of the things that we take for granted for ourselves, because we've gone through the journey, we think that somebody else might see the same thing. But what I've also come to realize is also depends where you are in that journey. So new perspectives open up depending also on your journey, because you bring all of those experiences and the emotion and relationships that you've had. They all bear on those situations, right?
Yeah.
So it's good. I think what my whole journey has shown me is the importance of being a good communicator. If you can communicate well, which I do not take for granted, it is a really powerful thing. And unfortunately, it's a skill that we don't spend enough time developing in schools. And that's resulted in, graduates coming out the way they do, and even in jobs, even in the workplace. It would be great if we spent more time on developing these communication skills, because everyone needs it. It's not just, people in the communications field or PR. Everybody needs that. And we need that to be able to, put our case forward, to build more influence for ourselves in whatever capacity. So it makes me happy that I'm not too bad
You're
in it.
You're an excellent communicator. But does that also mean that you have answered my question? Because I wanted to ask you the final question. What's the key takeaway that you want listeners to know as a result of listening to our 1 hour conversation today? Would that be it? Did you just answer my question without me asking the question?
No. I have one more that's better, I think.
Okay.
If I had to sum up with one thing only, I would say just begin. That would be the thing, the message that I'd want to get across, that you might feel that you need to figure a lot of things out before you start a journey, that there's a lot of uncertainty, that you don't know the whole way, and that can be quite debilitating. But I feel that when you are starting out and you have a dream and you can visualize that dream inside yourself, not necessarily articulate it to others, but you have an idea of what that dream is, you really have to protect that dream, because it is extremely fragile, and anybody could say anything. And because you are holding on so tightly to it and it means so much to you, if you have somebody close to you who says something negative, or somebody who's not as close to you that says something that's damaging, then that dream can get very, pretty much destroyed. And there it goes. Before you've even gotten started, it's just blown to bits. And so my message is to protect your dream, because it's yours and you're the only one that can protect it, much better than anybody else. And nobody else is going to protect it. Even if they mean well, no one else is going to be able to protect it as well as you, because you know what it is that you're trying to build. And the second thing is that you just need to start, because you can't wait until you figure everything out, and you can't wait for everything to align, because it doesn't. And if you just start, your actions, the fact that you're taking action will give you the strength to take the next step. This has been my experience. And so I feel that this is a worthy message to pass on to an entrepreneur, but also to anybody else who's trying to do something unique and different and meaningful to themselves, for themselves.
Okay. So, final one, where can people find you online or offline? Online, right?
Online. Well,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, Rowena Morais. You just type Rowena Morais, and also my website, rowenamorais.com.
Okay.
These are good starting points. There's other websites and social that you can
So
check
if
out
they
there.
find you, they will find all the other websites
Yeah.
and other businesses that you have.
Yes.
So thank you, Rowena. I had such a fun time interviewing you. I wish
Thank
I could
you.
go into like a ton of other questions. I like I told you, right? I had so many questions, but I know that we have to keep to our 1 hour. But I really enjoyed all the insights that you shared, as well as some of the very interesting parts about your life, which I didn't know about.
I am really grateful for this opportunity. Thank you for inviting me on the show. I think you've got a really great idea here. I love the idea that you are giving a platform to showcase women entrepreneurs in Asia. And I expect to see so many more wonderful women and their businesses on this platform being showcased. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode that is sponsored by Reebok Studio. You can find all the links and show notes on our website, womenpreneurasia.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe or share this on your social media with the hashtag WomenpreneurAsia. If you have guests to suggest for the podcast, please nominate them using the form on our website too. The upcoming episode is about Susan Chi, the founder of Criteria and Connections in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, who specializes in helping companies create memorable and wow-worthy experiences. She has created and developed events for Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, Rick Astley, Nicole Scherzinger of Pussycat Dolls, The Girls' Generation, Yasmin Mahmood, Jennifer Chan, and Datuk Paddy Bowie. Susan talks about how the pandemic has evidently hit everyone hard, especially the events management industry, and what she has learned from the many years she has spent behind the scenes as the unobtrusive yet dependable event organizer that never lets anyone down, as no request is too crazy or ridiculous. Join me next week as we talk to the bubbly and ever optimistic Susan Chi about how she accidentally fell into a business and what she's doing to get herself back on track. I'll see you next week.